Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time to read a letter from a fan. You guys ask a lot of great questions via email, messaging me through the portal that we have on our website, theneedledrop.com, and figured I would answer some of those questions because you guys have been sending a lot of good ones. We have one from Colin over here who is asking, "Hello, Anthony. I would like to ask you a question that really needs to be asked, and I would love for you to give your opinion on this. It seems like these days you can pretty much download any song you want. So the question is the album dying? I know artists are still making albums and releasing them, but we have artists releasing more singles than albums, and people feel that the concept of the album was always made for physical release. So are full-length albums going to eventually die out in the music downloading age? Will they thrive and prosper?" Good question, Colin. Good question. Here's the thing. It's sort of funny for everybody to be kind of jumping on this album's dead, album's dying, album's dead narrative, because right now there's more fucking albums than ever. There's more albums than ever before being released at any given time. Does the digital age allow us to release singles much easier? Yes. But the digital age also allows us to release albums much easier. And believe me, I should know, I have to keep track of all these goddamn things. And man, it was so much easier to keep track of what albums were coming out and what albums weren't and when they were coming out in 2009 and 2008 and 2007 than it is 10 years down the road. 10 years ago, you had release dates that were announced months in advance. You knew what year an artist was actually going to drop an LP. Like, you could actually trust some of the rumors that were going around of an album release. Things weren't pushed back as often. Things weren't released just overnight. You had more promos. There weren't quite as many leaks. Or when you had a leak, it wasn't quite as disastrous as it is now. Things were much less volatile and much more easy to sort of keep track of than they are now. There's so many albums being released now, I can't even review all of them every week. I can't even keep track of all of them every week. Like, there are at least, and there were a few every year back in the day, but there are at least like a dozen and a half albums at the end of the year that I'm like, God damn, I wish I listened to that, reviewed that, knew about that. But it's like there's such a mosh pit of releases all the time that you just can't keep up. So it's like, for the album to be dying, you would figure that there'd have to be little to no albums being released. But in fact, there are so many being released all the time. You just can't get away from it. Now, listen, that doesn't necessarily mean people are consuming or listening to albums. Okay, fair point. I get it. I understand. However, is that a matter of a lack of interest in albums in general, or is that a matter of the public not getting albums that are actually worth listening to all the way through? Because in my opinion, it is the latter. And case in point is the new Kendrick Lamar record, Damn, which, if you look at the way that album sort of dominated the charts, every single track of it, obviously right now, there's only like a couple of songs that from the record that are climbing the charts. But when that record initially dropped, everybody was listening to the album all the way through. And that album was getting so many streams all the way through. It was breaking records. Every single song was on the charts. Like, that's a weird thing. That's an anomaly. And the reason that is Kendrick makes and crafts albums to be listened to as albums. He's not one of these artists, of which today there are many, that just slap together a bunch of tracks that they threw together haphazardly in the studio, regardless of whether or not it's their worst or their best work, and just put it on a disc, put it on a record, put it on an iTunes page, make sure that it's at least 10 tracks or 30, 40, 50 minutes, although these days, with it being so easy to release digital music, I see artists releasing freaking hour-long and 90-minute records, of which there are at least a few relevant ones every year that I feel at least some kind of pressure to talk about. Like, it feels like the albums are becoming more, and it feels like the albums are becoming longer the more that I continue to do this. Albums are just becoming super bloated. It was as much as Damn for me was not Kendrick Lamar at his best, it was at least a little, bit of a relief to have him put out an album, or really have anybody put out an album that's like somewhat manageable, that's somewhat straightforward, that's kind of cut down and to the point. Unlike, for example, a Kodak Black or a Fetty Wap, who just drops these projects where it's just track after track after track after track of them doing the same thing, just droning on end. Honestly, and it's not much different in pop music either. Not to say that an artist like Katy Perry or like Lady Gaga, are in the same boat where they're dropping so many songs all together at once, but pop music has had a long-standing issue where the singles end up being the best tracks and the rest of the songs, the deep cuts, are just kind of mediocre. And honestly, it's kind of to be expected at this point, and it's only really the most hardcore of the hardcore fans that are really kind of indulging the entire record, of which are not everybody who is aware of Katy Perry, aware of Lady Gaga, aware of Taylor Swift, and are willing to listen to the singles because they're good, because they're enjoyable songs. I personally don't see the album going anywhere for those reasons, and I additionally don't see it going anywhere because artists write songs, and artists and labels don't just make hits by deciding that particular songs are going to be hits. Take, for example, the Future song Mask Off, which was a sleeper hit on his new album. That song became a hit, and I even pointed out the instrumental on that track because I thought the instrumental was pretty cool. But that song became a hit through listeners listening to the album and just deciding that was the best, most popular, most appealing song. That was sort of a democratically elected hit song from that record, which just kind of became one of the biggest songs of the year because people kept streaming it and listening to it and enjoying it. That was the song that stood out from the record. Labels and artists don't decide what is and what isn't a hit. They can certainly try their best to write formulaically what they think is a hit, but that doesn't necessarily mean a song is going to be a hit or become a hit, so a hit comes through the process of writing many songs. You keep writing songs until you have that hit. And what are you going to do with the rest of those tracks? Are you just going to throw them away? Are they all bad? Not every song that isn't a hit song is a bad song. A hit requires certain criteria in order to appeal to a large base of people and attain viral success. So there are songs that you have that are not hits that are perfectly good, perfectly enjoyable, but are probably not worthy of hit status, don't have hit potential. But that doesn't mean that material is not worth releasing. That doesn't mean fans won't buy that material. That doesn't mean that that material is not worth putting out there. And what the hell are you going to do when you play live? Which performing live is still a big part of how artists make money. Are you just going to put out nothing but singles for the rest of your career and just drop track after track after track every once in a while, and then when you go on tour, like you only have like 8 songs to your name and that's it? Like you're going to have to drop more tracks than that in order to actually have material for people to listen to and people to actually see you perform when you play live. So, artists need to make a certain amount of material in order to create a livelihood for themselves. They can't just drop 1 or 2 songs a year and just hope that they make the top 40. Certainly the internet has allowed for that to be the case with certain artists to subsist longer and maybe more fruitfully off of their viral songs, their hit songs. An artist like Ugly God comes to mind, as an example of an artist who has, a really, really big song and up until recently, not much more to speak of in terms of like material other than like a handful of tracks, that attained some viral success. Certainly it's a good way to start, but if you're talking about like a long-term career for an artist, you can't just be a singles artist forever. You have to drop some kind of sizable project. You have to come together with some kind of event for your fans to be excited about, something for them to consume and really kind of get close and personal and sort of intimate with your music on some sort of level, whether that be an album, an EP, a tape, something. And, it's for these reasons I don't really see the album going anywhere anytime soon. I feel like it's a part of the creative process. Artists have to write many songs in order to see success, be successful, feed their fans, give their fans what they want. Albums are being released now more than ever. Their consumption may not be as high as it used to be, but that's because of streaming, easy access to singles, and honestly, I feel like a consistent lack of quality in the album format right now. When you give people an album that's worth listening to all the way through, like a To Pimp a Butterfly, like a Damn, people actually listen to it, lo and behold. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Good question. Those are my thoughts. Next to my head over here is another video that you should check out on this channel. Click on Keep On Watching, or click on the link to subscribe to the channel. You're the best. Love you forever. Thanks, Colin.